Hello, time for another Man in Gray book review. Today's book is A Tree a Day, 365 of the World's Most Magnificent Trees by Amy Jane Beer, published in 2022 by Chronicle Books. It's 368 pages. Now, this book is set up kind of like a devotional where you have a little short chapter for each day of the year, and you can read it that way if you want, spending a whole year reading it, or you can read it all in one go like I did. So it's set up like a devotional, but instead of having a prayer for each day or a thought for each day, whatever, encouraging thing for each day, instead you have a tree for each day. There's a little one-page article about a tree, and it's accompanied by a color photograph or an illustration. And they're just really fascinating. It really shows you the broad diversity of trees around the world. And I wrote down a few notes about some of these. Some of them are trees that have historical importance, like the Emancipation Oak in Hampton, Virginia, a tree that's still growing today. This is a tree in 1863. The people of Hampton, Virginia, gathered around this tree to hear a reading of Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation. This was the first time that the proclamation had been read out to Southerners, and that tree still exists. There's another famous oak tree called Major Oak, which is about 1,000 years old, and it's growing in Sherwood Forest in England. And this is the tree, allegedly, is the tree where Robin Hood and his band of merry men gathered to plot their robberies. So there's a historical tree there. There's also articles about trees that hold records of various kinds. There's Methuselah, the oldest tree whose age has been scientifically determined. It's a bristlecone pine in California that is over 4,800 years old. Then there's the General Sherman in Sequoia National Park, which is the largest tree in the world by volume. It takes up some incredibly about 53,000 cubic feet of volume. It's an incredibly gigantic tree. Then there's the tiny tree, only about 3 feet tall, on Cape Horn Island in South America. It's a Magellan beech tree. And in 2019, after a group of scientists surveyed the island of Cape Horn, they found that this little tree was the southernmost tree in the world. So this little beech tree on Cape Horn is the southernmost tree. So there's some trees like that that are important because they hold some kind of record. And then there are trees that are kind of oddities. There's the bicycle tree in Scotland. In 1916, a man who was about to go off to fight World War I hung his bicycle up in the branches of a sycamore tree. He unfortunately was killed during the war, so he didn't come back to get his bicycle. And so over the years, the sycamore tree gradually engulfed the bicycle and surrounded it until today. Over 100 years later, only the handlebars are sticking out of the tree. So it's a very bizarre looking tree. You have this bicycle handlebar sticking out of the tree. Something similar is happening in Cambodia and Angkor Wat, the famous abandoned temple. Many of the buildings there are being slowly surrounded and swallowed up by fig trees, strangler trees as they're known. Then there are articles not on a specific tree, but on a species of tree. So there's some where she talks about particular trees and why they're important. This includes the jacaranda tree, wild cherries, the linden tree, willows, the baobab tree that grows in Africa, and of course holly trees, which she talks about in December for the Christmas months. Some of the trees mentioned are fictional. There's the pear trees mentioned in the Christmas song, The 12 Days of Christmas. There's the trees, the dead trees in Paul Nash's 1918 painting, We Are Making a New World. This was Nash was a veteran of World War I, and he drew a painting of these destroyed dead trees that had been blasted to death by artillery shells near the town of Ypres in France, where there had been 3 major battles fought during the war. And so it's a really depressing looking painting because everything's dead. So there's a painting, fictional paintings. There's also a section on the forest in the oldest piece of literature that we have today. the Epic of Gilgamesh. Then there's some really inspiring trees, about 170 trees near the ground zero of Hiroshima, where the first atomic bomb was detonated. About 170 of those trees managed somehow to survive, and they're still growing today. Those are called the Hiroshima survivor trees. And then we have some really unique trees called moon trees. During the Apollo 14 mission to the moon, the astronauts carried a packet of seeds of different trees and brought them to the moon and then brought them back. And then those seeds were distributed to all 50 states. And about 400 of all the trees, about 430 of them, I think, germinated. And some of them have been planted in parks and in museums, and some were given to individuals and are growing in someone's yard. In fact, I think there's a moon tree in Austin, Texas, that's growing in a guy's backyard because he worked for NASA and he took one of the trees home with him, planted in his backyard. So that's the kind of thing you have. Just a bunch of kind of random little articles about various trees. But if you're really interested in trees, you'll really love this book. Or if you like science, you're going to love this book as well. There is a mention in one of the articles about a charitable organization that plants trees. And of course, one of the things that you really appreciate when you read this book is the fragility of trees. They're very important for our environment, removing greenhouse gases and so forth, and providing shade and lumber and all that. But they're also really, really delicate. They're really vulnerable to acid rain and climate change, and of course, humans cutting them down and felling them for lumber and for positions and so forth. Oh yeah, there is one other tree I did want to mention here. Speaking of that, I kind of forgot about this. There's another historical tree. It's called Luna, the Luna tree, which is a redwood tree in California. And in 1997, it was supposed to be cut down by a lumber company, but a climate activist climbed up into the tree and built a platform, and she lived in that tree for 2 years to keep the company from cutting it down, and finally came down 2 years later after the lumber company agreed not to cut the tree down or the other redwoods in the neighborhood. So one of the things you get from reading this book is the understanding of how delicate trees are and how vulnerable they are to humans, not just cutting them down, but the diseases, fungal diseases spread when humans ship stuff around, and climate change and acid rain and so forth. So there is a charitable organization mentioned in one of these articles called One Tree Planted. One Tree Planted. This is a nonprofit organization that plants trees all over the world, and for every $1 that you donate, they will plant a tree somewhere. So if you want to help repopulate the tree population, you can donate to One Tree Planted, and they also take donations in memory or honor of somebody. So if you're really interested in trees or you like science, you'll really enjoy this book. It's called A Tree a Day, and the author is Amy Jane Beard. It's been another Man in Gray book review. Thanks for watching.